Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 3 of What If Naruto was given a gift that changed everything. Part 3 guys. Remember to get this one to 300 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto was sent to Hoshirama's time over an Anime King 2. And enjoy that guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 2, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all for helping your support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new, I'll be planning talking about to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, what do you say begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, Naruto was learning how to use a blade. As, while he was training, something strange happened. As Nezumi saw Naruto fell to the ground as he clutched his head in pain. As Naruto had a strange memory, a strange vision of some sort, of him. But he was a girl, and he was different. He had red hair. He couldn't understand what was going on. Once he woke up, Nezumi asked him if he was okay. As he said he was fine, but he didn't understand what just happened. Nezumi then saw him dancing with the blade. He was dancing around her attacks, as she was surprised by that. She couldn't understand where he learned his style of fighting from. As she tested him, she had to pick the style of fighting apart, as it looked familiar to her. As the both of them clashed the rest of the day, as she trained him how to use a blade. As the time passed, the visions got even worse, as Naruto saw himself as a woman, as he didn't really know what was going on. As a mission happened, yes, another mission as they went to capture a bandit leader of a camp, who supposed to have needed to train as they went in there, as Naruto had started to slaughter people with his chainsaw around the commander of the camp, as it was a woman from Kieri, as he took all of them down. The rest of his squads took care of them and kidnapped the two, as Naruto visions causing the mishap to allow the man to take a pill and kill himself, as he then spoke to Saru, as they placed on a seal on his neck, so that the visions can be quelled. But before that happened, though, Naruto had witnessed all kind of things, as he witnessed the woman. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki, yes. As the time went on, as Naruto long deactivated the seal, as he was able to control himself now, it seemed to reflect on his rage, his anger. But he knew the woman, she was Kushina Uzumaki and his mother. As he couldn't believe it, as he could see the nine-tailed claw when it stabbed her right through her stomach. As Naruto saw everything. As the time went on, as Naruto became respected and feared through Anbu, one of the deadly Anbu members. He was in the Corps for 5 years now, as he was now 13 years old. As he had to rescue one of his teammates left on a mission. As the girl respected him with a deep bow, many people did, as they went back. Naruto was listening to the briefing, so he didn't really understand what they were talking about. As Saru told him to stay behind as he was a part of the sealing group. Saru threw Naruto a scroll as Naruto quickly understood it. He had the knowledge of sealing art in his head, because Saru told him that he knew his mother. Yes, he knew Kushina, as two of them used to be on the same squad, as they would maneuver from different squads, and Kushina was good at sealing. When he saw those chains of Naruto, he thought that they were family, especially the name. But now finding out more, he knew that Naruto was their son. As Naruto heard what the mission entailed for him to be put on this team, Naruto chains can restrict the Jews. As the group they're going after, they're massing a large amount of chakra, and Saru and the others believe, the Anbu captain, that they want to create their own Biju. So yeah guys, so it's basically as we left off. You guys can check out the place and check out for yourself. So, what do you say begin this new episode? The Anbu commander believe the people that were hunting may be trying to create their own Biju. Naruto's eyes widened by that, his hand moving towards the seal on his stomach, as Saru noticed. Oh, don't worry, nothing on the scale of the Kyuubi. Human chakra is not so dense to form such a creature, as Saru shook his head as he returned to the path, to the trees in front of them. It will be a smaller, but still, dangerous creature. It wouldn't be the first time someone has attempted this, after seeing the raw power the beast control. But they're never successful though, and the process is always devastating. That is why we have to strike early before they can finish. For the first time, Naruto heard nervousness in Saru's voice, as he could see that this was really serious. So, they need me and my chains, said Naruto. Yes, as a precaution, in case you're successful, said Saru. You shouldn't be too worried about it though. Konoha has become quite efficient at stamping out a large threat as these. As Naruto nodded back, but at the thought of fighting Bichu, he felt his blood boiling, as his hands clenched in anticipation, and a small part of him actually wanted him to succeed. But he didn't say anything for obvious reason though. Time skip. As Naruto stared up at the hulking mass of energy that was looking down their small group, as he realized that his Taiko did not know everything. The operation was going so well, but something went wrong. They wasn't so sure what happened, but it resulted into this. It's big. Well, it was enormous. The thing was at least 5 stories tall. It seemed to not have any particular shape, as it was a blue mass of chakra. But it had arms though, just to be some strange round glob, and claws that tear through the earth as it moved. The beast seemed to be in a different state every time. Moment it phased through the jutsu that were thrown at it, and then the next, the jutsus were bounced off. The beast seemed confused as it thrust about, raising its arm to batter away the jutsus that came towards it. It also seemed very, very angry, as large wide eyes looked upon them as the thing roared, shaking the earth. Naruto looked towards his captain, but the man motioned for him to wait, as Naruto was itching to move though. He couldn't just ignore the rampaging Bichu in front of him, and his blood was just itching for him to get involved. Thankfully, after the Anbus aren't able to do anything to stop it, Saru gave Naruto a signal. The Anbus were clashing against the beast. Well, they were clashing. The thing was just battling with their attacks. They heard a yell of excitement as something shot over their head. They saw chains lashing out everywhere. The Bichu raised his arm and tried to slap Naruto out of the air, but the chains lashed onto it and wrapped it around. Far from the jutsu that were thrown at it, the beast could feel the chains that were holding onto its arm. As Naruto landed, stomping into the ground as he pulled on his chains. The beast tried to pull him away, but chains erupted from Naruto's back and stabbed into the ground. As Naruto yanked it, it flipped and smashed into the ground hard. But Naruto wasted no time as a chain extended from his shoulder, attaching to a nearby holster as he pulled himself on and flick as he descended upon the beast. But a moment later, a semi-translucent hand slammed into Naruto with a force that should have just squashed him. Worry came on Saru's face as Naruto was sent sailing through the forest, breaking through many trees. He was forced to sail his concern for the mission, as he quickly gave orders to the sailing team. Food was a delicate process and they would need all the time they have, yes, to get prepared, and this beast wouldn't give them much. As he looked over where Naruto's body had teared through the forest, as the Anbus got to work. Meanwhile, Naruto lay in a deep trench. His mask was shattered, as cut was all over his body, and he was certain that his left arm was broken. But a big smile was on his face, a bloodthirsty smile, as he felt an odd tingling sensation out his entire body, and he didn't really feel any pain. His teeth started to get sharp, turned into fangs, as his bones snapped back into place. His whiskers got thick. Seeing that his mask was completely destroyed, you could see the feral look on his face as Naruto jumped to a tree, as he shoot off it with such force that the tree exploded out of the ground. Everyone saw a red blur shot by them, as they felt the enormous chakra bear down on them even mightier than this beast. It was the same feeling from 13 years ago when the Kyuubi attacked. Naruto released a sadistic sound as red chains exploded from his body. They looked like they were dipped in fresh blood. The Bichu turned as it noticed Naruto's arrival and tried to swipe him away again. But the thing cried out as Naruto's chains ripped into its body, skewering it as everyone had to hold their ears. The thing cry was echoing through the forest like some kind of bomb. As Naruto landed right on the thing's chest, the chains around him started to lash around, tearing into it. Every gash, a blue liquid dish started to flash around as chains lashed out of Naruto's body as he started to bring the thing down, slicing it up as he wrapped up the arms, he wrapped up the legs, he wrapped up the torso, he wrapped up the neck, as he then jumped off and yanked it with him. The thing's face smashed into the ground. There was pure silence on the watch, the boy standing right above the beast. Saru started bark out orders quickly to the regular Anbus to secure the limbs properly and to the sealing team to get ready quickly. He was worried about Naruto because Naruto's chains were now different. They seemed deformed. As he felt despair coming from that chakra, as he saw Naruto's eyes had become red with slits in them. The beast started to glow as the sealing team started to run through hand signs, as the beast's body started to become less solid, as the chakra started to leak from its many wounds into the air. But just before the seal could fully converge, the thing lifted up his head and released a scream and exploded outwards. He just burst in that same blue liquid. As it wasn't really wet or anything, he just dissipated into the air. Quiet. Seeing that that was dealt with, Saru turns attention towards Naruto. As Naruto was standing there, his spiky mutated chains started to slash around. His eyes were still red, and the malicious grin on his face hadn't left yet. But suddenly, Nezumi flickered next to Naruto, as Saru thought that Naruto was going to attack her as he stepped forward. But she spoke to him. As he stood there, he seemed to be hearing her out. As his eyes slowly returned back to normal, his mutated chains then went back into his body. Nezumi then handed him a replacement mask, and that was that. Disaster just stopped. As Saru would have to ask Nezumi what she said to him later. Saru always knew this time would come, but he thought it would happen in a few years. With a sigh, he placed his concern to the side and turned his attention back to the cleanup. Naruto could be dealt with back in Konoha. Time skip. As Naruto came to, as he had claws instead of normal hands, but they returned back to normal. Another failure it seems. Saru came out of the bushes, as he had scratch all over his uniform, as the rest of the team followed. All of them looked a little beaten up, but none of them seemed angry or upset by it. Just a bit tired. Nezumi seemed worse off as her uniform shredded, and her sword got a few new nicks on it. Naruto supposed it was because she was the one fending off his chains when he was in that state. For the past week, they have been training him how to control the power inside of him. But it turned out to be a little more difficult than they anticipated. Accessing the chakra itself wasn't all that problematic for Naruto. Naruto compared it to how he would use his chains, simply digging into himself until he found it. However, the Kyuubi chakra was dense and angry, as it didn't respond to Naruto completely every time. It had a will of its own. The more chakra he accessed, the more the Kyuubi's will came through, and the more harder he used to control it. It got to the point where the two wills started to clash violently, and his body outside went out of control and started to slaughter everything around. It seems that is what just happened, and it likely wouldn't be the last time. He was lucky to have his squad acting as a safety net until he could withdraw the chakra back inside of him. Nevertheless, he didn't like that he couldn't control it. But Naruto remembered what Nezumi said to him back then. After he's just helped bring down that monster, Naruto was standing there as he felt so powerful, as he heard a sweet voice whispering into his ear. More people around, more people test out his new power on. Perhaps even in this mode he could even take on Saru. As a grin came on his face even wider, Nezumi then flickered right beside him as he looked up at her. I thought you were more stronger than this, she said. And everything came crashing down as realization slammed into Naruto with full force, as he realized he was strong. He was strong without the Kyuubi, as he wound himself back in. As Naruto blinked several times, as his body returned back normal, he looked up at Nezumi, as she gave him a smile under her mask, not that he could see. Good job, she said. And with that she flashed away. As Naruto felt a strange feeling inside his chest. End of flashback. As Naruto wouldn't forget that. He hated that he couldn't control this power now. But he will control it no matter what. I'm ready to go again, Taiko, he said. A smile came on Saru's face. Naruto would master his power. For some reason he felt safe. As long as he had his team, he knew that they support him, and he will do it. Time skip. Here's Sai, as he blew out smoke from his mouth. From the recent reports of the Proto Biju, he was delighted for his troops and how they handled it, even after the situation escalated, and it brought a small smile to his face. He was like a proud grandfather reading about his students, his children, grandsons' accomplishments. And as for Naruto, it has been 5 years since he placed the boy in Anbu, and he has seen nothing but good reports from the captain about him. As he went to find Naruto files, he was surprised he saw the number of missions that Naruto had performed. S. As he couldn't believe it. He was mostly focused on other things, as he's been hearing good reports from Saru, so he hadn't go through Naruto file. But now, looking through it, But it made him worry. A person was not supposed to stay in Anbu for so long. No, they weren't. Time skip. As he was confused, as he stood in front of the Hokage, well, he knelt in front of the Hokage. For one thing, it was strange that he was here alone without his squad. Another thing, it was strange that he was here at all. The Hokage had envoys who he dealt with directly, and the envoy commander being the main one. Simpler grunts who, with just 5 years of experience, answered to their captain, who answered to their commander. So, for Naruto to be here by himself was unorthodox. Missions from this was mostly from the S-rank kind and up, if the Hokage was going to assign him to something personally. That or it was bad news, which the old man was known to give out directly. He even gave Naruto a motion to rise. It's good to see you, Naruto-kun. Behind his mask, Naruto's eyes widened. He hadn't heard his own name spoken in at least 5 years now. In fact, he was so used to going by Karasu, it was almost strange to hear his birth name. And their name was always their greatest secret in Anbu, even if their identity became compromised. Hokage-sama. He managed in a neutral as tone as possible. While he knew that he may have some lack with authority, and Saru can make him skip it a few times. Well, he always find a way to get him back. But he knew that he had to respect the Hokage. Oh, yes, Karusu-kun. I apologize for the slip. As Naruto knew that the man didn't make a slip, he did it on purpose. But he didn't understand. He thought the Hokage would be pleased. The changes that happened to him, weren't they good? Even he have to agree, he was thinking much clearer and acting with far more courtesy than before. At least he was the murderer, a psychopath with no regard for human life. No, he was just a, well, sociopath with very little regard. Yes, an improvement in squad eyes. How are you doing in Anbu, Karasu-kun? 5 years are rather a long time for an operative to stay in service, especially one as young as you. As Naruto blinked, as he wondered if this means what you think it means. I am fine, Hokage-sama. My mission is well above core standards. My training is progressing at a rate my captain finds suitable. And I have a tolerable relationship with most members. And some of them did not tolerate him in the most lightest. But the Hokage looked rather displeased after hearing such good news. Is there anything else, Karasu-kun? How about your relationship with your squad mates? Naruto wasn't sure how to answer that. It wasn't like he could just tell the Hokage that he never felt more with a family than he was with his squad mates. That would be highly inappropriate. As he got that answer one day while training with Nezumi, it felt like he was a part of a little family while there. So he decided just go for a more appropriate answer that would put all of them in a good place. We have an amicable, working relationship. I see, said the Hokage. As the Hokage was silent for a while, until he finally spoke. And how would you feel if you were to leave Anbu, Karasu? Almost immediately, Naruto opened his mouth to protest, but nothing but a struggle escaped his throat. Even the Hokage didn't seem to hear it. He just stood there for a few minutes, as he was grateful that the mask did not show emotions, because at the moment he was going through a lot. Yes, his face was twisting in strange different ways. He obviously did not want to leave the Anbu. For the first time he felt accepted. While the emotions were new and confusing to him, it didn't mean that he just wanted to discard them and move forward. He wanted to actually learn more. But the words that were dig deep into his brain came surface. Anvus were just tools for the village to be used, and they could be discarded as such. If that is what you think best, Hokage-sama, he said. Hiruzen looked at Naruto as he saw his stiff posture and his hands started closing to fists. His eyes briefly flickered towards the window that was taking most of the space in the back of the office. Well, you could call it the front, on the point of view. Very well, Operative Karasu. From this moment you're released from Anbu services to return to the normal Shinobi Corps. Naruto went silent as he didn't say anything for a while, until he reached up and removed his mask. As he stepped forward and placed on Dex, beneath it was a face that Hiruzen hadn't seen in 5 years, and in that time Naruto had certainly grown. As, where before there was a pudgy-faced boy with wide blue eyes, he had more angular features now. His eyes seemed rather cold, like two chips of ice, and his whisker marks seemed to have deepened and become more feral. It's good to see you again, Naruto, Hiruzen greeted. Like Naruto just stepped inside the room and Karasu had walked out. In a twisted sort of way, he did. As Hiruzen smiled, despite Naruto's recent changes, he could still see the smile of the boy that always took his hat and put it on, and it was too big for his head and he ran around the office. Hokage-sama said Naruto. Hiruzen saw that it was the right idea to take Naruto out, as he could see that Naruto was getting irritated. He was just only confirming his suspicions. Now, Naruto, you come out of the Anbu, put me in a bit of situation. As for your skills alone, and your mission records, your captain reports you easily qualify for a Chunin rank. Naruto was surprised. It felt like only yesterday that Saru had made him able to move squads on his own, and he told that he was Chunin level. He always felt like the Chunin level was above him, until he was able to fight a squad member and be on their level. Yes, actually fight them face to face and even win. But Hiruzen figured that Naruto might slaughter any team that he was on because of sheer boredom. Despite hearing that Naruto has mellowed out, thinking back in those days when Naruto looked like he would just kill someone for looking at him funny, it was hard to pick. And likewise, any Chunin team he would be placed on would be heavily unbalanced because of Naruto's superior skills, as Naruto has never taken the role of a leader before. That wasn't in any of Saru's reports. However, Naruto-kun, as Naruto had clenched in the face at the rather prominent suffix, even Teiko stopped calling that a year ago. Becoming a Chunin is a somewhat complicated process. It usually involves myself and clan heads looking over your mission records, deciding whether or not you're ready to accept the position. As he sighed, took a puff and noticed a smoke stream from his mouth. Unfortunately, as Anbu, mission records are heavily classified for mine and the Anbu commander eyes only. There's also the fact that you do not have any official shinobi license, making granting you the position difficult. As Naruto's fingernails started to dig into his palm, as if this was just gonna cause problem, why the hell take him out of Anbu? Luckily though, the independent Chunin exams are in a few weeks. Any shinobi of Chunin rank or higher is eligible to participate. My recommendation of Chunin is one I can give you immediately once you obtain a license. As the man paused, like he was expecting some kind of thanks, but Naruto said nothing. In any case, you won't be the only one from Konoha participating this year, so you will have the support of the village behind you. He smiled warmly, hoping to see a similar expression from Naruto. Is that all, Hokage-sama? Naruto said, in a rather professional tone, as he tried to hide everything, the rage and anger that he felt. Hiruzen sighed as he released another cloud of smoke, as he leaned back in his comfortable chair. I suppose not, Naruto-kun. But remember, my door's always open if you need anything, okay? Naruto nodded once as he walked out of the office, as he felt unusual not to slip into the darkness or sunshine away. Now he was expected to leave like a regular shinobi, just another damn face amongst the damn same herd. He felt cold and rage inside the thought. Timeskip, deep inside the training ground era, where most wouldn't approach, many people scare away from that place. As explosions, rupture could be heard inside of there. It brought a feeling of dread like the Kyuubi attack all those years ago, as the place was literally being torn apart. In the center of it all, Naruto snarled as his chains ripped another tree from the earth. As he threw it, he smashed through several other trees before crashing over. Naruto panted, fatigue started setting into his muscles after being here so long. He wasn't satisfied though, as the orange aura came around his body as he launched himself to a boulder. His fist smashed right through it as he raised both hands and drive them down as he tore up the earth underneath him. His chains then came out of his body and started ripping everything apart. It spiraled like a helicopter top and teared through everything, as he then roared as it trembled through the place. If he wasn't recently training with his chakra with the Kyuubi, and his team wasn't a part of it, Anbu would think that the beast had been unleashed, but they knew that Naruto has been training recently to control the power. As his more thickened and spiky looking chains lashed out of everything around them. But when it all caught up to him, his chains disappeared into his body. The orange aura vanished as he collapsed on his back. As he collapsed down, tears in his eyes. I think you're right, Saru, Taiko. Only Karasu can mix with a training ground like Kuma. Taiko's familiar voice said across the clearing, as Naruto turned his head slowly as he saw his entire team over there. As he got to his seat and rubbed his eyes quickly, he must look like a child right now, throwing a tantrum or something. Saru as he stopped himself, as he realized none of them were wearing their masks, as they were wearing their suit but not the armor. It was strange, living and eating with those people, and he didn't know what any of them looked like. Karasu, or should I call you Naruto now? Naruto flinched hearing his captain say his name was like the final nail in the coffin. You don't need to call me Teiko anymore. I thought you'd be happy about that, although for security reasons, I still asked you to call me Saru. as he had a thin mustache and pale eyes. Kuma doesn't want to see Karusu go, as Kuma rushed forward but Teiko grabbed him by the collar and held him back. Now, Kuma-kun, Naruto had to go his own way eventually, Teiko said, as he looked towards Naruto with a sad smile. It was just sooner than we were expecting. Teiko wasn't what Naruto was expecting. For one, the man was bald, which he had kept hidden with his Anbu hood, and he had a strange, bushy mustache that came out on each side of his face. Teiko is right. As Naruto looked over to Nezumi, as he looked at her violet eyes, and the way her eyebrow almost had a zigzag to them, without her armor, as her chest was rather more sizable because they weren't being pressed down. She looked over at him as she smiled a bit. But that doesn't mean he's not part of the squad, she said. You aren't here to say goodbye, Naruto asked. A amused expression came on Saru's face. Of course not, he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Even if Hokage-sama decided to remove you from the Anbu, you will always be a part of his squad. What gave you that idea? As he looked around, besides, if we didn't, I would fear forever training ground around the place. As Teiko walked over and slung armor on her shoulder. Personally, I say this call for a celebration. It's not every day our Kurasukan grow up and become a Jonin now, is it? If Naruto wasn't already exhausted, he might have spared the man for the comment. I am not a Jonin. I have to take an exam first. As Saru and Teiko then burst out laughing as he heard Naruto grumble, as Nezumi started to twitch a bit, as a smile came in her face. Kuma saw everyone laugh as he laughed as well. As they calmed down, I don't think you have anything to fear on that. As long as you remember everything we taught you, said Saru, as he wiped an imaginary tear from his eye. Just don't accidentally kill one of your comrades, remember? It may not reflect really good on you. And I think I agree with Teiko for once. Perhaps a drink isn't matter, he said, seeing that they're leaving the core. Moments later, Naruto found himself in a bar where the Anbus always visited. Having seen what happened when you drink alcohol, Naruto had stayed away from the drink as he wondered why people want to act that way. However, with Kuma and Saru squishing him inside the booth, the alcohol placed in front of him didn't seem like a request, as he simply shrugged as he picked up the saucer and drank it. If they were expecting a reaction, they were rather disappointed. The burn when the thing passed down his throat wasn't really much because he's been trained with the Kyuubi's chakra and that burn was a lot worse. And not to mention, Anbus are not one to show their discomfort or pain. But he could tell and taste the flavor of the rice wine, the fruity hint inside of it, and dry liquid. He looked up to see the squad staring at him. What? It's good, he said. They all looked at their drinks, as before they picked up themselves, Kuma struggled with his tiny saucer. So slowly, as the evening progressed into night. They would talk to most of the missions they were on, as all of them revolved around Naruto in some embarrassing moment, or one another. As the night progressed, Naruto started to smile, as Teiko had wanted Naruto to go and peep on the woman. Yes, he was inviting him, but they were caught. Well, Teiko was. Naruto had gotten away because he was already a distance away, as he was caught by all the women, who nearly beat him to death, as Naruto laughed at that. It was something that he really done when not soaking in blood, laughing, just by having fun. He remembered the moment well as Teiko was beaten by the woman as he was watching everything in that tree. To his teammates' surprise, the night progressed, but Naruto did not become really drunk. He had the same amount as Kuma and Kuma was getting tipsy, but Naruto seemed completely fine. By now, Teiko was unconscious on the table, drool leaking from the corner of his mouth. Kuma was just giggling to himself, and Saru, while seemed fine, his words were starting to slur a bit. Nezumi was the worst as her body was just swaying ahead. She didn't hiccup as it returned back normal, as she then started to sway ahead once again. As Saru was the one to finally call it a night. He bid farewell to the others as he promised to do it again, as he picked Teiko up and flung him over his shoulder and carried him off, trying not to sway. Kuma, taking Teiko leave as some kind of sign, he stumbled out of the booth, as he broke right through the bar door frame, as he simply walked through it. As Naruto started to laugh at the sight. As he looked, Nezumi was still staring, her eyes narrowing and widening. She made no sign of moving, and Naruto wondered if it would be better if he could become drunk. Still, he got up as he decided to guide Nezumi out of the bar. She seemed to be in a daze and drew to understand her surroundings. Thankfully, bringing her back was rather easy. Well, it involved a lot of hand-holding that Naruto could have done without. He was tempted to just carry her back by his chains, but he didn't know what she might do. Or, he would have to explain him carrying off a rather drunk woman in his chains, as he just brought her back through the back streets and the alleys, as he brought her back to the apartment complex. As Naruto realized he might be forced to leave this place, despite it being his home for the past 5 years. as he helped her in her apartment as he avoided all the traps. After all, she loved to teach him and show him where there was. After all, he was her self-proclaimed student. She pulled her sword from her back as she spun it and stabbed it in the floor. As Naruto saw the ground, it wasn't the first time she'd done this. She then took off all of her clothes quickly, as she wasn't one for underwear, as Naruto quickly turned away. Yet again that strange feeling tugging at him. As he made to leave, though, a hand grabbed his wrist and pulled him back. Chains erupted from his body and stopped right at her throat. Far too much of his body was touched for him to feel comfortable. But he was pulled straight into her chest, as she then wrapped herself around him as they collapsed on the bed. As the chains started to recede back into his body, now in the darkened apartment, with she hugging him like he was some kind of stuffed animal. He have to admit, maybe this wasn't so bad. He would be gone before she woke up though, but this was definitely not bad. Time skip as Naruto stood in his apartment for the time being. As he had a problem, he had nothing to wear. As he was just in his Anbu leggings at the moment, that was never a problem before because he had his Anbu uniform. He couldn't wear that anymore, so he was put in a dilemma. It had been a rather awkward affair at the clothes shop, because he was never one for shopping. He had no idea what to do. In the end, he'd buy a random load of clothing that were his size, as they were now all around the floor. He felt fearless safe just wearing his Anbu pants, tied around his sandals. But the rest of it, he could only snarl at. He eventually shrugged on a chain, neck shirt, like the one Nezumi wore under her uniform. But he didn't realize that he looked like a male stripper from the underground ring that they busted some time ago. He pulled on a green shirt with black stripes running down the center, but he hated the sleeves. He messed with it for a few moments before growling. He ended up ripping off the left sleeve entirely, showing the mesh shirt underneath a bit, as the right sleeve was dangling down to his fingers, but he just had to leave it. He tied his new headband that he didn't have use for recently around his neck. He looked at Chunin jacket that was lying next to him on the floor, as he glared at it dangerously, wishing it would just burst into flames. He just strapped his Anbu arm guard on, the right one under his sleeve and the left one onto his arm, as he remembered how handily he came in deflecting kunai and swords. He wasn't going to wear that bulky Chunin thing. Yes, that was just too much. He looked back in the mirror. This was good enough. He looked at his face as he wondered how he was supposed to look. He never really cared that much when he was wearing his mask. Right now he was scowling dangerously. He sculpted his face out until it was neutral. He tried a smile, but too many teeth, it made him look rather scary. As he ran a hand through his hair, as he released a long, pent-up sigh of frustration. That was a different problem. His hair has grown quite long, inching down past his neck and shadowing his face, as two bangs were on the side of his face, and seeing that he was not wearing his mask, every time he turned his head, he saw them, and they kept on flashing right in his eyes. He swept his hair back, as he was successful, until a lock fell down right in his face, as he grabbed it and tied it up with a bit of bandage he had lying around. As his hair looked like the clan stats before the village system. Saru had shown him a lot of pictures from back then. He had been rather insistent to learn a bit about history, but he couldn't find himself a gear though. But one of his hair would just keep plopping out, but it still wouldn't fix in place. A chain came from his shoulder and smashed into the mirror. God damn it, he screamed. As he jumped through the window and he left it the way he was. He would sort through that later. Not that it would matter, his hair fall flat when it was soaked in blood anyway. Time skip. It was a set of rather confused and fast track events for Naruto Uzumaki, and now he was in Kasino Kune as he was holding a white rabbit, as his job was to protect this damn rabbit. Yes, to protect the rabbit, as he was looking over the overgrown corner in the darkened forest. This was where the Chunin exam took place. He had to be here. The heat within this place was stifling, and he saw a few ninjas from Kumo remove their bulky jackets before diving in. They were used towards the cold weathers because they were on mountain tops after all, not this sticky hot place. The sooner he could get out of this place and get back home, the better. No one seemed to recognize him in the exams, even some of them going as far to say that a picked weak like him shouldn't be here in the big boy exams. He quickly altered your thoughts on that though, nearly got him through out of the exams, but when rumors spread that Kazere, no Naruto, was in the exams, he received a rather wide berth. But many of them now stared at him with hungry looks, as they want to try and prove themselves by trying to best him. But his own shinobis were mixed. They seemed to just ignore him, like if he was left alone he would just vanish. But there was one thing to the rule. One person. So, what do you think this would be, kid? Naruto's eyebrow twitched, The voice that has been pestering for the past 2 days spoke up. The purple-haired woman, who you would literally feel a smirk at him behind him, pressed herself against his back. Years to desensitize of those things. Because most time Nezumi walked around the apartment, completely naked. And she was not bothered, as she just came out of her room, naked, going to the fridge and get something, then went in back. But this woman was still annoying. I don't know, he said, hoping that she would get the mess and leave. But Naruto ordered thinking he was supposed to protect the animal, so they might be pinned against something or someone. The first test they were given was to fight the start line to the first part of the exam. That was rather easy. They were just supposed to gather information by finding the location. So Naruto just chained up the first Chunin he found and threatened him to tell him the answer. And he found the location. People tend to speak when you expend them over ravines by their feet, threatening to drop them to their death. You really need to lighten up, kid. This attitude is going to add years on you. Although, I suppose you could use them. Shrimp. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Naruto quelled his anger. Midarashi-san, this attitude you speak of is the only thing stopping me from skewering you straight through the throat, said Naruto. Anbu spun around him as she crouched down. So they were on eye level now. She too had an animal tucked in her arm, a terrified looking cat that looked like it was rolling around in a bag or something. See, that's more like it. You don't need to hold back around me, kid. If I could snap Nai-chan out of her funk, I can do the same for you. Count on it, she said. Wonderful. I look forward towards it, said Naruto. Sour words about him not killing his comrades playing to his head over and over. You'll see, kid, stick with me and I'll make an upstanding man out of you yet, said Uncle. I'm sure, he said. It was then that the grass Jonin showed up. He believed that all of them were here now. Uncle then scolded off as she started to mix and mingle with the other Chunins that were around. As Naruto stood there, the old, grey-haired Jonin said, I figure everyone is pretty much here, so we'll get started. As you may have been noticed, you were assigned a small creature to protect. If that animal dies, you're disqualified from the exam immediately. A few of the more bloodthirsty in the crowd looked down at their quivering animals in disappointment. You guys managed to find this place one way or another, so we're going to proceed with the exams. He motioned to the darkened path in front of him. Down there is the obstacle course. Completion mean making it through alive with your companion. However, only the first 32 will be able to advance. If so much of you make it that far, that is. There is no killing in this portion of the exams, but that courtesy does not extend to your examinees. Passengers, other than that, do not leave the marked path. This will also lead to disqualification immediately. Proctors will be watching you. Naruto slipped backwards, his chain started to extend from his body. Alright, you will go on my signal, as a wicked grin came on Naruto's face. The proctor narrowed his eyes towards Naruto before he whistled. A few things happened in that second. The faster of the Chunins took off, using their speed to get ahead. At the same time, Naruto's chains snapped out and killed 10 animals. He wasn't the only one on this idea though, as a blue shock of electricity came from his left. He ignored it though, as he pulled himself back and launched himself, as he had dig his chain into the ground like a slingshot. As he restrained his small body by placing it into a makeshift backpack with his chains. He heard cries of outrage towards him, but he simply chuckled as he made his way down the road. The moment he reached, he had to duck as a sword passed over his head. Chains erupted from his hip and spin him around a tree as he flipped. As a chain came from his palm, as he then turned, but he had to stop himself, he couldn't kill. They extended and wrapped around the Chunins, as Naruto threw them across the path into a sturdy looking tree. As Naruto did not look to see them, Nezumi training worked well. Just keep on moving, as he just keep on moving that he did. She believed that everything that is done in life should be a simple transition to a next. Or at least, that was how Naruto understood her. Because she didn't tell me many words, well, she didn't say many words, period. As the first obstacle came across was a long stream of water. There was no going left or right, just straight through. As Naruto jumped until he reached close to the end as he landed. And he was right, it was some kind of adhesive. As he tried to lash to it with chakra, but he could not, as he started to sink. But lucky enough, his chain shot out and grasped towards the soil as he pulled himself out. As he started to run down a straight path, after a whole minute of running, nothing. As he wondered how long he was going to take to reach another obstacle. As he stopped for a moment to look back, but there was nothing there. No one at all. And there were over 100 people in this exam. As he looked to the side to see a giant mushroom, he realized what happened. Release! As the world around him shimmered and returned back to normal. as it was just in time as well because a pair of stone shinobi came bearing down on him. The larger one of the two. He had a round nose, he was kind of chubby, as he had a yellow scarf on. As he speed through hand sign, he slammed his hand to the ground and dragged it through the earth. As a ripple tear through the earth came straight towards Naruto, as Naruto jumped up to dodge it, but that was their goal. The smaller one of the two, either a boyish looking girl or a feminine looking boy, as the person launched himself towards Naruto, their fists covered in rock. Naruto wanted to groan in mid-air as he recognized the person. It was the Discharged granddaughter. All Anbus were brief on the leaders of the family villages, so they wouldn't accidentally kill them and cause an international incident. Sir Toby was particularly vain that kind of thing. As Naruto groaned once again, it was just so easy to kill when in Anbu, but now he had to hold back, probably rough her up just a bit, but not kill. She had a rather good plan. Without leverage, most shinobis were worthless in mid-air because they could not move. But Naruto, two chains shot from his feet and embedded into the ground and pulled him down. As Naruto grabbed her ankles while way down, as he swung her and threw her into her accomplice. Both of them fell to the ground as Naruto's chains lashed out once again. As they were picked up by their ankles, they were tossed into trees. As Naruto sighed, he and Kuma made a game out of at once. Who can throw the most bandits further? As he lost 2 times though. 2 out of 3. Well, Kuma was ridiculously strong. His moment of reminiscing about the past nearly cost him as a blue, crackling blur shot by him, trying to sever off his chains. But he retracted them as he stepped back, as the thing passed him. As Naruto said, it was a Kunoichi. She had blonde hair, short blonde hair, looked to be a few years older than him. She had rather cold blue eyes looking at him, and her chest rather large as well. She gave him a once over, sizing him up, before she took off once again. Her window of opportunity had closed once she missed his chains. As Naruto wondered if she did not decide to fight him because of reputation, or she didn't think that he was worth it. With an uncharacteristically grin, he ran after her. There was only one way to find out. She had the height advantage and she was a bit faster, but he used the advantage of his chains to pull him on trees and those things to get closer. As he tried to tangle up her feet, but her used her sword that was infused in lightning to slice away chains. He would have gone for her animal, but that would have ended things a bit too quickly. Plus, he couldn't see the animal that she was carrying. But as she turned to flip off the tree branch, Naruto saw a bird. As it was set firmly, it looked like it was tied down in her cleavage, as the bird seemed to be enjoying itself. As Naruto lost sight of her when they entered a pitch black tunnel, his chains were glowing, as he could see though, a bit. He then heard mechanism releasing, as he dived to the ground, kunais whistling over his head. He got to his feet, his chains formed a dome around him as he ran. Flames then lit up the entire area, but Naruto seemed to bat them off as he made his way through. He eventually emerged from the tunnel with a blonde-haired Kunoichi nowhere in sight, but he would be looking for her. "Come on kid, no slow down now." He remembered that voice as he grew in annoyance as a hand placed on his shoulder. Uncle flipped over him as he looked up. A few had speculated, but not many had discovered. Uncle Midarashi was not wearing anything on their skirt, snapping out of his gaze at a rather strange sight. Naruto took after her, as she just seemed to be mocking him, keeping a fixed distance between them. She seemed to be faster than him, but yet she didn't run off. She just rushed back, and sometimes go forward, even slowing down a bit. Just look at him, and grin. She twisted and turned to strange shapes, bending her body in various ways. But despite everything, she had a smile on her face, going through everything. "That was pretty funny, what you did at the starting line. I'm really glad that I decided to go back in the back," she said, as they leaped over a Venus flytrap that tried to capture them. "But then again, you wouldn't do that to me, now would you?" she said. Naruto said nothing as he shredded another plant. "Aw, you're no fun, and here I thought I would give you my company. You know, a lot of guys would kill for that same honor." As he thought if he ignored her, she would leave. But that was wrong as she just kept on pestering him. As he narrowed his eyes towards her, as he was tempted to just kill her animal right now and get her out of the race so she would stop annoying him. But despite the way she was acting, her guard was up, he could see. And he also did not see the cat anywhere on her. Thinking back to the Kunoichi from earlier, Naruto's eyes drifted towards her chest. But she caught him staring as he turned his head. "Oh, I didn't realize you were that kind of kid. More for upstairs type than downstairs. Should have known," she said. Naruto cursed himself, as he just gave her more ammunition to annoy him with. But they came up to the obstacle course end. She and Naruto were 8 and 9 over the line, as they came in behind a few grass Chunins, stone Chunins, and also sand Chunins, and the Kunoichi from before. There wasn't much talking between the groups, even as Uncle went around, making her the subject of attention for everyone just glaring at her. Naturally, once she realized no one is talking to her, She came back over to him and she started bugging him the entire time. He didn't understand because he was not talking to her either. As she was the only one doing the talking, as he wondered if she could hear some telepathic side to the talking that no one else could. As the rest of the Chunins came, he heard her talk about numerous topics, as he didn't say a single word. As he heard many names like Naichan, Smokestack, and Cyclops. As the last two Chunins crossed the lap, two of them extremely exhausted. As Naruto remembered them from Konoha Gates, did we make you one of them ask? As the proctor for the exam got there without a scratch, as he nodded. As the two of them high-fived each other. Well, Aizumon Kadetsu actually made it somewhere in the exam this time around. Both of them pale hearing that voice. Uncle-san? So, you made it through as well? Uncle grinned at the both of them, as she wrapped her arm around the both of their shoulders. Of course, did you doubted me? She asked. As both of them pale, as Naruto was glad at least it wasn't him. Anything else was quiet as the proctor cleared his throat. Right then, now that you have completed the first aspect of the exams, I need... Don't get too cocky, candidates. The proctor was cut off as a woman came out of the ground like she just came out of water. The first proctor gained a tip mark as he glared at her. This was obviously not the first time. She ignored him as she brushed back her long black hair. You may have completed the first task, but the second task will begin immediately. Both Kadetsu and Aizumo groaned as the others voiced disapproved as well, the ones that were a bit wounded. She glared at all of them as a Jonin. You cannot expect, just because you completed one mission, you will not be expected to go on another. You are a weapon amongst your village, and as a Jonin, that weapon is the best at your disposal. You will be used until your blunt, that fine edge, go down into a knob, she said. Naruto snorted. It was like listening to his Anbu condition all over again. As long as he received his recognition and validation, didn't really care about that. Now, I will explain the rules of second test. As Naruto saw the passageway, as it was fenced off by a rather flimsy gate. All candidates who enter that forest, they will stay there until 16 remain alive, or not incapacitated. From this point on, killing is not prohibited. However, the animals you have been assigned with will stay with you. Death of your animal mean instant disqualification. Attempting to place your animal with another mean instant disqualification. Attempting to leave the forest mean disqualification. Do I make myself clear? She received at least a head nod from everyone. No one ought to drop out after making this far. Good, then you need to assemble into teams of 2. As instantly eyebrow rose, as Naruto growled. Why? I thought Jonins mostly work alone. She immediately picked him out of the crowd. Jonins are expected to work alongside whoever they're assigned to. Not only that, they're supposed to be examples for other teams. A lack of cooperation can be fatal no matter the rank. Naruto snorted as he sat back down on a tree stump. In any case, this shows how good you are in choosing your allies. The next exam will begin once you chose your partner. You have 2 minutes. As Naruto noticed that the two Konoha Shinobi arrived, latched onto each other, like they were each other's lifeline. As he noticed Shinobis among their villages quickly teaming up, he didn't personally clear he would take whoever was left and drag them through the exam if he had to. Just as long as he didn't have to be with, well, how about it, partner? Mother of God, Naruto thought to himself. As the woman rested, her chest right on top of his head. He shook her off and hopped off the trunk, but he glanced around. Everyone else was already paired up. Yep, seems you're stuck together, huh kid, said Uncle. As she picked him up rather awkwardly, as she gave him a strange hug. As he took Naruto willpower, not to go crazy, as she dragged him over to one of the gates. Apparently they were given a rest, as the new proctor chatted to the old one. So, said Uncle, what's the plan, boss? Naruto blinked once. Boss? Sure, why not? I figure I'll take a back seat, and I'll just let you do you. As Naruto blinked and turned back towards the forest. Are you a censor? He asked. Mind's going through the step that Saru had drilled into him. She shook her head no. Neither am I, said Naruto, in which case we need to find a place to bunker down. Set up defenses and wait for the other team to come to us. Or kill each other off. Nah, far too boring, she said. Or we can eliminate any team that come near us, said Naruto. As a grin came on Uncle's face. Well, what do you know? Kid, you know your stuff. The buzzer went off as all the gates started to open up. The second exam started off very slowly, as the forest was rather large, so encountering other teams would be a rather long while, because it would be a rather messy, just battle royale. That wouldn't show anyone's skills if they were so tucked in together. So, Shrimp, what's your story? Going for a Jonin at such a young age. And, height, she said, with an amusing tone. And, seeing that it took a while for anyone to show up, Uncle had free notion to talk as much as she wanted. I think I would have seen you around. People are always buzzing about the stuck-up Ayuka and that duck butt Uchiha. Bet you must be one of those Anbu kids. Those that fly out of the academy in fast track, am I right? Naruto's eye twitched slightly, as that gave her all the answers she needed. It irked him how easy she was able to read the situation. Yeah, I knew it. You're easier to figure out than you try to make yourself seem, she said. I pride myself by getting information of people, you know? I bet that's why you're here too. Most don't take the Jonin exams, you know. Just some special circumstances. A lot of Anbu come through this exam. They got no chance really because their mission record is locked up, so they can't really just get promoted like that. I think the old man also used it to get them into the war a little. You Anbus are not really the sociable type, you know? I'm glad you understand, she said, as she giggled, her voice giggling, sound rather feminine, as she coughed in her hand, as she looked up. But then again, it ain't just you guys white mass. There are a lot of them, crazy Jonin types. Ones that want to make themselves a legend, make themselves without war. Some of them are usually pushed over, but some of them got what they got, you know? A chain came from near the hand and slashed to a thick throat. Do you ever shut up, he asked, as Uncle stood behind him, as she watched him clear away everything. If I've ever find the off button, you'll be the first to know, okay? As a tree ripped out of the ground by his chain and tossed aside, without him even moving his arm. That's a rather useful ability. Now I get why everyone keep calling you that nickname. Which are you, said Naruto. Huh? You said there's a lot of reasons why people come to the exams. Why are you here? Uncle went silent as he noticed. Her face got rather sad. Well, actually, I'm already a Jonin, she said. Well, a Takabitsu Jonin at least. So I don't have the full qualifications. Apparently, it's because I don't have the right attitude. Or a rounded set of skills or something, she said, as she snorted. As if I could beat any Kunoichi in the village right now, even Night-chan when we spar. But, as she calmed herself, putting on that fake grin. I'm rambling, aren't I, she said. When aren't you, said Naruto. He regrets saying that as she came over and pulled him right in her chest. And you love me for it, don't you, she said. As Naruto simply glared at her, but it didn't look that threatening because half of his face was pressed right in her chest. I will secure you, he said. Uncle simply chuckled as she released him. As she released him a bit hard as he was pushed to the side. As a chain lashed out and skewered a tree. As Naruto noticed a ripple. Oh, so you finally noticed, she said. I thought you Anbu type had specialized in all sorts of area. So, Genjutsu is the one for you, she asked. Naruto's chain scratched him across his own arm as he shattered the Genjutsu. Why didn't you say something sooner if you noticed, said Naruto, as chains came from his back vibrating in anticipation. Because they're just trying to tire us out. I was just humoring them. I would have liked to see them attack us while I was in the Genjutsu. I would have probably gotten a few laughs from it though. Right guys, she said. She turned towards the tree. As a man pulled himself from the tree, as he was camouflaged perfectly with it. As he launched towards Uncle. Don't underestimate us, you leaf bitch. His fists were clenched as senmons were coming from each of the points, as they were dripping with venom. The moment he got close enough, a snake latched out of her trench coat and wrapped around him, as the thing bit right into his neck. As Uncle simply walked over him. Katsu! As the man came behind Naruto, the man partner, as he lashed out with senmons. Finally, said Naruto, as they clang against his chains as he blocked them. As Naruto's chains ripped into his shoulders and tear him from the ground. As the man cried out in pain. As Uncle then pat him on the shoulder. As the other ninja was dealt with, wrapped up with boa snakes. Good job, capturing not killing. Thinking like a Jonin after all, she said. Right, said Naruto with a grumble. Capture. As he tossed the man right in his partner. As another snake came and wrapped around him as well. As Uncle was patting the snakes on their head and rubbing them under their, well, snakes don't really have chins. Under their mouth at least. It almost reminded Naruto of a dog as they flick their tongue out and start to pout it. So that is how you're so easy able to notice Genjutsu, said Naruto. Yep, my summons are pretty smart, and Genjutsu don't affect animals the way they do humans. Especially the snakes, seeing that they see through their tongues. They can just inject me with their chakra and problem solved. Why don't you say hello? As a snake came up her arm. A chain came up near her arm. I'll pass. I have much more reliable friends, he said. As the top of the chain looked like it was looking at her. Well, I guess we aren't so different, said Uncle. The chain just melted back in his skin as he turned back to the two captured. What do we do about them, Naruto asked. Just leave them, I'm sure the proctor will come and collect them. Probably. Either way, they're out of the exam now. Naruto grinned at that. I could make sure, he said, as a chain hovered right at their throats. Uncle simply scoffed and just shrugged him off. Don't worry about that, we don't have to. As Uncle was cut off, as Naruto's eyes snapped towards behind him. But guys, be in subscribe right here. If you want the next part of this or to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notifications they posted. Go ahead and check out the new episode of What If Naruto was sent the Hoshirama's time, and enjoy that guys over on Anime King 2. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 2, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace. I'm out for you guys.